Hi guys. So, most of you guys have seen our post yesterday, so you know that we are expecting, and as you can see from our surrounding, we are not home. So, I guess the best way to describe everything that's been going on with us for the last couple months is kind of to start all the way from the beginning. So, I guess majority of my adult life, I have suffered with something called PCOS, so it stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I mean, you can look it up. It's a hormonal condition, and there is a ton of different like side effects and symptoms. But the most common, especially that's relevant for this, is the absence of your period and fertility problems. So I knew that even before we tried getting pregnant, I knew that there was a possibility that I would not be able to, or that I would need the assistance of like fertility drugs, IVF, something like that. So last year we decided that we wanted to start trying. So after a few months, we actually got lucky and conceived naturally without anything. So we found out that we were pregnant December 12th, 2020. I called my family doctor. She scheduled us for a dating ultrasound. We did that on January 9th, 2021, so this year. Adrian was really lucky. He got to come to that ultrasound. He wasn't so lucky for a few of the other appointments due to COVID, but he got to come for that one. They dated me at around 9 weeks at that time, and they put our due date as August 14th. So around week 11, we did, I guess, like genetic testing. So that was like a blood work and another ultrasound as well. That came back either negative or really low risk for Down syndrome and different things. So that was good. And then around week 12, I started experiencing spotting. So I was bleeding a little bit. I called my family doctor. She said that we'll do another ultrasound just to check everything out, make sure everything is good. So I did that at around 13 weeks. That came back and everything looked good. My uterus looked good, baby looked good, cervix looked good. So we kind of just put it like, it was just like, regular spotting, no issues, and we moved on. So the next ultrasound was scheduled for the 18 to 22 week like anatomy scan. And for those of you who have not been pregnant, this is like a really big scan, and it basically shows any physical abnormalities in your baby, and it literally scans like hand size, like making sure they have 10 fingers, 10 toes, that the heart's developing, the lungs developing, the spine. It checks out mom's uterus, everything. So that was scheduled for April 8th, 2021, this year. So we took the day off from work. Adrian took the day off from work as well. Unfortunately, he was not allowed in, so I had to go into this appointment by myself. We started the scan. She did like a scan from like my stomach, and then she did the intravaginal scan. Everything seemed normal to me. She gave me some pictures, and then she told me to wait in the waiting room, that she just had to ask the doctor something. I mean, looking back now, that kind of is like a red flag, but I didn't think anything of it at that time. So I'm waiting, and then she came back and she asked if I had driven myself to the appointment. And I said, no, my husband was outside. And that's kind of when the red flag started flashing for me. I was like, okay, what's going on? Is everything okay? So she said she'll be right back. And then finally she came back and she said that the doctor had called my OB, and my OB wanted me to check into labor and delivery at Centenary. So that's where I had planned to deliver. So I'm thinking, like, check into labor and delivery. I am only 21 weeks at this point. What's going on? So I immediately start crying. Sorry. So I start crying, and she's like, okay, don't worry, like, your cervix is dilating, but check into the hospital, they'll know what to do, it'll be okay. So I'm crying, I leave, I go to the car. I don't really have much information, because at this moment, like, I don't really understand what that means by my cervix is dilating. So I get in the car and I'm trying to explain to Adrian what she said and that we have to go to the hospital. What did you feel in that moment?
There's a mix of emotions there, and I'm thinking that this is a normal scan, and we go in, I go home, I have some McDonald's, and carry on my day. But things took a turn um, for the worst, and we had to stay positive and go to the hospital and see what we're dealing with.
Right. So we get to the hospital. He comes into the hospital with me, but he's not allowed in the labor and delivery ward, so he has to wait like in the hospital lobby. So I'm in triage, I'm with the nurse, and then the OB on call comes in and um, he examines me with a scope. That's really painful, by the way. And then he's like, okay, like, I'll be right back. And then he leaves, and I'm with the nurse, and she puts in an IV, and the whole time she's like, I'm crying, and she's like trying to comfort me, and she keeps telling me like, don't worry, you're still young, don't worry, you have time. And like at that time I didn't understand what she meant by that. Like, I was confused. Finally he came back and he's like, okay, so after I did my examination, um, it confirms that the ultrasound, like what the ultrasound says, your cervix is dilating. You're currently at 10 centimeters dilated. And so I don't know much about this at that point, but I do know that like 10 centimeters dilated, like you're ready to start pushing and having a baby. I am only 21 weeks at this point. So I'm like, okay, so what do we do? And he's like, okay, normally we do something called a cerclage. So if your cervix starts to open, it's basically a stitch that we put in and it seals the cervix shut, and you can usually carry till full term in most cases. He says with your cervix, it's fully dilated, so there's no cervix left to stitch shut. So I'm like, okay, great. So what's the next option? Like, what is there to do? And he just doesn't say anything, and he just looks at me and he says, I'm sorry, but there's nothing else that we can do.
Okay.
So, sorry guys. So at this point, I'm like freaking out. I'm so for most hospitals, they have a viability age in which their NICU accepts like babies. So at Centenary, that is 30 weeks. And then at two other hospitals in Toronto, so there's Sunnybrook and Mount Sinai, and they accept at 23 weeks. So I was 21 weeks and I think 5 days. So I didn't meet viability for either of these hospitals. So he said essentially, we will just kind of wait until your water breaks and we will deliver the baby. And all we can offer you is comfort care, which is basically you're delivering the baby and you have to keep the baby with you until they pass. And just keeping the baby comfortable. So they, at this point, they check me in to the hospital, and I'm in the labor and delivery ward now. And one of the nurses comes and she tells me that, if you need anything, if you need a bag or anything, you could tell your husband to go get you one because you'll be here all night or as long as it takes. And he can't come in, but he can give it to the nurse and we can bring it for you. So I call Adrian and I'm crying like controllably. I tell him what the doctor says. I know you were in the lobby.
Yeah, I was in the lobby, and it's hard to hear that if this baby came and there's nothing that the hospital can do for the baby. So there's a lot of emotions, and I had to take some time and leave the hospital, go to the car, and sit there, and I pretty much just broke down, and it's hard, but at the same time, I knew that I had to be strong for the baby and for Amanda, and we gotta get through this.
Yeah, so he ended up going home, getting me some things, and the nurse was really sweet. Like, I mean, at the time I couldn't really see that, but like now looking back, like, she was so nice. She like, my makeup was smeared everywhere, like I was crying, and she's like, here, like, I brought you like a bucket of warm water and a washcloth, like, wash your face. She had brought me my bag, and she's like, is there anything else I can do? And I was like, honestly, like, there's nothing you do. You can't save my baby, and like, you can't bring in my husband. Like, that's the hardest part, because of COVID. I had literally been told that I was gonna lose my baby, and I had nobody. So she was like, okay, like, because of COVID, like, that's our policy, but like, let me talk to management and see if they can make an exception and get your husband here. She's like, I can't guarantee that he'll be able to come in, but let me see. And she's like, is that something you want me to do? And I was like, yes, go ask. So she comes back and she's like, okay, I talked to management. They said that they will transfer you to a private room, and your husband can come and spend the night with you. So I called Adrian. He didn't even go home. He like grabbed a sweater from the back of the car and like came right in. So he came in, and like, we got to be together, and like, literally, like, we just lied in the hospital bed and we cried for like hours. I think at that point we told both of our parents, and Anthony and Deanie, and some of our friends that had known, and they were all really distraught too. But yeah, so the doctors expected that my water was gonna break that night, and we were gonna lose the baby. And that was probably the most difficult night of my life. I tried to sleep, but literally I would like close my eyes and fall asleep, and then like I would wake up thinking like an hour had passed, and it was like 6 minutes. So that was the entire night. And then finally the morning had come, and like it was like the happiest day of my life, because my water hadn't broke, baby hadn't come. It was like the first good news that we had gotten. So that morning my OB was on call, so she came to see me, kind of explain everything that's happening. And so I was on bed rest at this time, and like they put me on something called, I think it's called Trendelenburg.
Yeah.
So basically this is like a normal bed, and then my bed was like this, so my head was lower than my feet, and basically they're just using gravity to kind of
keep the baby in.
Yeah, to keep the baby in, to take pressure off your cervix. And like at that point my like water was like the membrane was like falling out of my cervix, so they were trying to use gravity to kind of push it all back in. So she came in and she told me that like she's got some appointments, and then she was leaving the hospital at 5 p.m. to go back to her clinic, that before she left she could come back and like do an exam and see if like bed rest had done any good, and then we can kind of go from there. So I was like, okay, fine. So throughout that day, they were kind of preparing us. So we saw like people from the pediatrics department, from the NICU, social workers, like everybody was kind of just mentally preparing us for what was gonna happen. The social worker was so sweet. She advocated for us and got Adrian to stay till Monday, which was like against COVID policies for the hospital. But so this happened like the Thursday, so he got to stay Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday morning. What time did you leave?
That's about 10:30, 11.
10:30, 11 on Monday. So anyways, so 5 p.m. comes, and my OB comes back, and she's like, she's not gonna use a scope, because anytime that they like do that, they can end up rupturing my water. So she said she's just gonna do it with her hand. So she's checking my cervix, and she goes kind of pale, and she doesn't say anything. And I'm thinking to myself, oh God, like I can't take any more bad news. And she's just like, I feel cervix. And I'm like, excuse me? And she's like, I think I feel enough cervix to do a cerclage. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So then she kind of told me like all the risks. Like, I mean, they could go in and do it and break my water, and that would be it for baby. My cervix had been open for so long, I could get an infection, and they could trap it inside, which could potentially kill the baby, or like it could work, or it could fall out. Like there were so many options, but I was like basically 1 day shy of 22 weeks. So I said, like, even if this can hold me till 1 week, till I make it to 23 weeks and I could like be transferred to a different hospital, like that would be amazing. So she said that she had to leave, but there was another OB coming at 8 p.m. When she got there, she would come check me out, and then she would be performing the surgery for that same night. So I said, okay. So she went to organize that. At 8 p.m., the new OB came. She said that she didn't want to like keep checking my cervix, so she said that they were going to take me down when it was time. They were going to put me under anesthesia, and then she would check me. If she checked me and there was enough cervix, she would just do the surgery right then and there. And if there wasn't, then they would have to wake me up, and unfortunately there was nothing else they could do. So I said, okay, that seems fair. So like around 10 or 10:30, they took me down, they put me under, and luckily there was enough cervix. I was about 4 centimeters dilated, I think, at that point. And that's like the cutoff point. So she said that she did the surgery, it was successful, it looks like it was holding. They put me on round-the-clock antibiotics for like 4 days just to make sure that there was no infection. They gave me like different types of suppositories to strengthen the cervix, and then it was just a waiting game. So Monday morning came, Adrian unfortunately had to go home, and then my OB was back on call on Monday, and she said that, so she came in to see me, and she said, like, everything is looking good, you're not cramping, you're not bleeding, like, I'm gonna do an ultrasound to make sure that everything looks good. And she said, if everything looks good, I'll discharge you on the condition that you go home and you're on strict bed rest. Don't get up, don't do anything, don't cook, don't clean, don't shop. If you need anything, point and he has to do it. So I said, okay. So we did the ultrasound, everything came back, the stitch was in, the cervix was completely shut, everything looked good. So she discharged me. So I got to go home. And then I had a follow-up appointment at the MFM, which is the Maternal Fetal Monitoring Clinic at the hospital, for the following Tuesday, so just over a week. So I was home for a week. I did everything she said, literally strict bed rest. I literally just got up to use the bathroom. And Tuesday morning came, and we went back to the hospital, and unfortunately, we got some more bad news. So she was monitoring me, and she did another ultrasound, and she said that the stitch had come undone, and my cervix was dilating again. I was already at 1 centimeter. And she asked me what I wanted to do, because at this point, I think I was 23 weeks and 2 days or something like that. So I said, I want to save this baby. So she said, okay, we will transfer you to one of the 2 hospitals, whichever one is accepting, and heaven forbid if your baby comes, at least they will have the proper NICU to deal with that. So we waited. They were supposed to take me there by ambulance, but because like it wasn't like an emergency, it was taking forever, so Adrian drove me.
I am the ambulance.
So he drove me. We got there. We were in their triage, so he was allowed in there. They hooked me up to the monitor, which is like, it tracks like the baby's heart rate and to see if I have any contractions, and they kind of like strap you in. They took blood, they did all their stuff. Somebody from the NICU came and spoke to us and kind of gave us all the details. At this point in my mind, I was thinking, okay, 23 weeks, they'll accept baby, like, we're gonna save this baby if it comes. After speaking to him, and he gave us all the statistics and everything. It was really hard to say. I mean, I'm not trying to say that like if you have a miscarriage or anything like that is really hard. But when you are given the option to literally decide if your baby is gonna live or die, like
It's a very hard option. You either, you know, let this baby go, or you do everything you can to save this baby. And it was, I personally, you know, didn't come thinking that I would be having to make those decisions, and we had to make those decisions. And you know, the doctors that we've seen so far, they come in and they give you all the scenarios, you know, and that's all the negative scenarios about what can happen, just to prepare you mentally, of what can go wrong, and you know, the chances of this baby surviving and being a healthy baby, without any, you know, sort of complications. And the risks are very high, at 23 weeks.
yeah.
So that's, I think, you know, another challenge we faced, and a decision that, you know, we had to make.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if anybody else would have made the same decision that we ended up making if they were in our shoes. But after hearing everything the doctor said, I mean, there was like an 80% chance that the baby wouldn't even make it, even if they tried. There was risks that they would have like cerebral palsies, they wouldn't be able to walk, they could be blind, they could have like a heart condition, they would have like speech problems or not be able to speak. Like, there was a whole list of complications. And as much as I wanted my baby, I also did not want them to suffer. So we made the decision that if the baby came that week while it was 23 weeks, we would just do comfort care. And if I made it to Saturday, which was 24 weeks, that we would then decide to resuscitate. It's so weird, but literally 1 week difference, and the statistics like changed drastically. Like, just the rate of the baby surviving went from like 80% that they wouldn't survive to like a 50% chance, which is still not the greatest odds, but like it's way better than it was. And it was only like a difference of like 4 days. So that's,
it's very hard, you know, like when a doctor comes in and tells you, do you want to resuscitate, you know, I've never been asked that. And you know, well, yeah, we haven't been ever asked that. You know, usually it's like, do you want fries with that or something, and you make that kind of decision. But you know, this is a human that, you know, you have to decide, do you want to resuscitate and save this baby? And you know, if we made it to 24, that was our goal.
Yeah, so after we decided when to resuscitate and when to just provide comfort care, they admitted me into the hospital. Adrian also had to leave again. He actually had to go all the way home again, back to Ajax, to pack me another bag, give it to the nurse. They brought me a bag. And again, because of COVID protocol, I had to be admitted in the hospital by myself, and I had to wait 3 days before he could even come visit me. So I was admitted, Tuesday, and we couldn't see each other till Friday. And yeah, like, that's really difficult, but, yeah, so Friday comes, I started getting contractions, I started, cramping. They hooked me up to the monitor, they saw the contractions, they thought I was going to go into labor, they hooked me up to an IV, everything. Also, I literally, like, two days before, so the day before, so Thursday, I ended up getting a steroid shot, the first dose of that. So basically, any baby that's born before, I think, 34 weeks, they give this to them, and this is like a boost to help develop their lungs and to develop the digestive system in case they come early. So I had asked for it because I wanted to deliver, if I delivered, I wanted to save the baby at 24 weeks. So they gave it to me on Thursday. My first dose was at noon, and then I got it Friday morning at noon. So I had just gotten my second dose that morning, and then that evening I was starting to get contractions. So like, I was so glad that I had gotten those shots, because it would give baby like a little bit extra help. So yeah, they checked me out. the doctor on call checked my cervix. Luckily, I was not dilating. I was still at 1 to 2 centimeters, which I came in with, and he said that he's not going to do anything because I'm not dilating, like the contractions are not causing me to like actually go into labor. So he said kind of just wait it out and see what happens. That was one of the rockiest nights again, but we made it through. So we call this our little miracle baby. And yeah, so that was like last Friday.
Yeah.
So we are currently, as of today, we are 25 weeks and 1 day. Every day that she stays in here is good. It's a blessing. She's growing, and the longer she can stay in, the better. We are hoping and praying that we can go to full term, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen. So yeah, I just wanted to share our story with you guys to let you know what happened. The doctors don't know why my cervix started opening, if it was related to my PCOS, if it was related to the bleeding that happened at the beginning. Before this all happened to me, I did not know what incompetent cervix was. It happens in some women who don't have any like pre-existing conditions, and it's just you have a weak cervix that can't hold the weight of the baby, and I had no idea about this before. But after like YouTubing it, it's actually very common. Like a lot of people go through it, and the part that like is so disturbing is that it's something that is pretty much preventable. I had my last like scheduled scan at 11 weeks. So if I didn't have that spotting at 13 weeks, my last scan would be 11 weeks, and then the next one would be at 21 weeks. So between 11 weeks and 21 weeks is a huge like gap. And unless you've had like previous like miscarriages or you've had like incompetent cervix in the past, they don't monitor you, and they just assume that your pregnancy is going to be like normal and fine. Which, I mean, if you've never had a kid or you've never had these before, like how do you know it's going to be fine? So I didn't know to ask questions. I didn't know what to ask, actually. I didn't know this condition occurred. I didn't know like to ask, you know, maybe to be monitored in between or to have like another ultrasound or something else. So like I kind of just want to share that with people, because like if I had been seen at like 16 weeks and my cervix had started to open then and I got in the cerclage, it might have still held, and I could have probably gone all the way up to 36 weeks without any issues. So it's definitely preventable. So I just wanted to bring awareness to it. But right now we are good. I am still in the hospital. I'm at Sunnybrook, and
it's been a month. You've been here since April. Well, in hospital since April.
Yeah, so I've been pretty much hospitalized the entire April. First about a week at Centenary, and now just over 2 weeks here at Sunnybrook. And as much as it sucks, I will most likely be in hospital until I deliver baby. So we just wanted to say thank you to everybody who commented, who wished us, who texted us, who Instagram, Facebooked us, to congratulate us, to ask if we're doing well. We are doing well. All three of us are doing well right now.
And thank our family for, you know, our immediate family for praying, and, you know, all the prayers, you know, helped us get to where we are today. And, you know, we couldn't have done it, you know, without them and their support. So we just ask that, you know, we continue to pray, and hopefully we can get to full term with this baby.
Yeah. So yeah, just thank you to all of you guys who are asking if we're okay. We are okay. Just, you know, your continued love and support and prayers would be really great. And yeah, so we will keep you updated on our journey, whatever happens. And yeah, so that's kind of what has been going on with us and this pregnancy. It's definitely not what we had expected, but this is our pregnancy journey. And yeah, we're still very excited for this baby and excited for what's to come. And yeah.
And we hope that we can, you know, if we can touch somebody else that's going through the same thing, you know, it gives them some hope, and we're always here if anybody wants to call or text. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have any questions or you know somebody going through this, if you're going through this, feel free to comment, feel free to call us, text us, we're here. And yeah, so that's the update of what's going on, and if anything changes, if anything happens, we'll let you know. But thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.